I want to move to something else that's taking place right now. You have the Saudis in Jeddah that is accepting the delegation for Ukraine and the United States.
Yes.
I am fascinated by this because
Yeah, I am
it is
too.
completely incomprehensible to why this is happening. And what I mean by this is images. Basically, these guys in Saudi Arabia, the United States has its delegation, Ukraine has its delegation. All right. The reason this is so fascinating to me is because these are our proxies. We talk to our proxies all the time. And not just talk to our proxies all the time. Anytime Zelensky wants to come to the US, he does. Anytime we want to send messages, we do. Anytime we want to send intelligence and all that stuff, we do.
Yep.
Why do we need a delegation in Jeddah to talk to people who are
Yep.
supposedly our allies? And we talk to anyway. And just for the audience, just so they understand what I mean by this, there were no diplomatic channels with the Russians, at the very least, no open diplomatic back channel, yes. But we broke diplomatic relations with the Russians for the most part in its entirety. So it makes sense. Right, for the most part. So it makes sense for us to say, okay, we're going to have a delegation, we're going to talk, we're going to create the contours of this relationship going forward so there could be a meeting later. Now, there's supposed to be a meeting between Witkoff and Putin coming up on March 12th or 13th. I believe the 13th. This is according to Axios. This has not been confirmed by the White House, but let's assume for the moment it's legit. Why do we need to meet people who we meet and talk to constantly? If that makes sense. Like again, with the Russians, we weren't really having conversations with them. So it makes sense for us to have these meetings in preparation for large meetings between Trump and Putin later. We talk to Zelensky all the time. Why
Yeah.
do we need to do this? Give me your take on this. And what does this mean that Ukraine has been relegated to having formal talks with the US on issues of peace talks? That's fascinating to me.
See, I don't think this is about Ukraine. I think this is about us and the Russians. We really don't have direct contact with the Russians anymore. The Russian ambassador to the United States left the U.S. in October and hasn't.
Well, they got a new one, from my understanding.
Yeah, but he hasn't presented credentials to the president yet, so
Okay.
he's not formally recognized as the ambassador yet. And I think there are bigger things afoot. Look, Trump is prepared to screw Zelensky, and
Big time.
yeah, and so I don't think he cares one way or the other what Zelensky says or does in Jeddah or Riyadh. I think this is bigger. I think this is preparing for a summit between Trump and Putin. Something where Trump is likely going to propose some sort of grand deal, some big agreement that's going to try to get U.S.-Russian relations back on track. You know, what's interesting to me, though, is that the Saudis are involved at all. This is not a traditional Saudi role. This is very specific to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Usually, if we want a mediator like this, it's usually the Qataris, for example. The Qataris are sort of seen as non-aligned enough that they can be the honest broker. Ignore the fact that we have the largest Air Force base in the world in Qatar.
Right.
Foreign policy-wise, they're non-aligned enough that we can trust them to bring 2 or 3 sides together for talks. I'm just amazed that the Saudis are doing this, and I think that this isn't necessarily. I'm gonna really split hairs here. This isn't necessarily a change in Saudi foreign policy so much as it's a function of the personality of Mohammed bin Salman.
But Saudis have a relationship with the United States and they have a relationship with Russia. I mean, they're part of BRICS, or at the very least adjacent to BRICS.
Yeah.
They have been taking Russian oil hand over fist and have been working with the US. So, I mean, wouldn't they be a perfect mediator in this situation, considering they have a relationship with
foreign policy wise, they like to stay out of these kinds of big conflicts.
I see.
They almost never put themselves in the center of conflicts. They like to just sort of, stay quiet and hope everything works out. That's why I think this is a function of his personality, Mohammed bin Salman. He wants to be involved in this because he wants to be the international statesman. This is new for Saudi foreign policy, which then leads me to believe that it's actually a bigger deal than people realize. It's not about Zelensky. It's about something bigger than that.
Dig into it. What is
Yeah,
it? Because I get the sense that Trump, I mean, any deal that they make is going to be a new security architecture of Europe, which
yeah,
is weird because Europe is not, they're being sidelined in the
right.
conversation. It's like we will impose a new security architecture on you since you guys don't have the capability or the hard power to do anything about the fact that we're doing
Yeah,
so. But
yeah,
so you think that this is effectively, all right, Zelensky, and because in reading it, they made the point of saying, this is going to be a determination of whether or not Ukraine really is open for a peace deal and a ceasefire. Full stop. Which gets across A, there's going to be a mineral deal that Zelensky is probably going to sign. B, they're not going to get security guarantees for that mineral deal. C, even if they sign that deal, the reporting that has just come out, and this is coming out of Kiev press, but they're pulling it from a US outlet, that Trump won't resume military aid after signing the mineral deal either way. So
wow.
basically, when you sign this deal, there is no turning back on the weapons. We are going to end this war. And giving you weapons is not a way for us to end this war. So there's that. Meaning, I get the sense that part of this meeting is going to be dictating on some level how things are going to move forward and whether or not Ukraine is going to be willing to sign on to whatever Trump is pushing and moving forward. And one last point, there's also reporting that Trump wants to give it to Zelensky, that he wants him to either step down or have elections immediately and step down. Because, again, as you pointed out, he hates Zelensky. There's that. And I get the sense that this is Joe Biden's war. He wants this over with. And Zelensky is an impediment to him getting this over with. Give me your take on that.
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head. And again, you've got that Nobel Peace Prize hanging over top of everything. How great would it be to end this war that's been going on for years now,
Yeah.
and to steal Ukraine's minerals at the same time? I say
Yeah.
steal in air quotes, steal. Uh, as it is with many world leaders, this is personal with Trump. He does hate Zelensky. He wants Zelensky out. Trump knows that the Ukrainian constitution calls for a suspension of elections during wartime. He doesn't care. He wants elections because he wants Zelensky out. And if there aren't going to be elections, then he wants Zelensky to resign. Yeah, I think I think I said it on your show the last time I was on. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, Zelensky is living in London, not in Kyiv.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
I think that for Trump, what is acceptable is, well, multifold. Ukraine concedes the Donbass and Crimea to the Russians. There's going to have to be a carving of territory. Number one. Number two, some sort of security guarantee, but not NATO membership for Ukraine. Number three, he would probably concede to Trump, that is, would probably concede to Ukrainian membership in the European Union, even if it's not really his call. I think that Ukraine's going to end up in the European Union, um, and the United States gets 50% of Ukraine's rare earth metals. I think that's where this is going. Whether the agreement is struck in Riyadh or whether it's struck in Geneva or whatever, I think that's where we're headed.
What do you think they're going to want from Putin on this? I am super fascinated by that question because the fact of the matter is Russia has won the war. And
Yeah,
if the war continues, the Ukrainian military will collapse.
yeah,
They just collapsed in Kursk. I mean, it was a rout in
yeah.
Kursk. That pocket is going to be closed within a couple of weeks,
Mhm.
which is going to be a massive psychological blow to many of these generals who went on CNN saying this was fantastic. This was just a great show by Zelensky. And I remember the day it happened, I said, this is humiliating for Russia, but all of those people are going to die. All of those people are going to be pushed out. There will be no negotiations over that territory in Kursk. I was right. Those people on CNN were completely wrong.
Yeah,
And I guess my thing is, from their point of view, if we keep going, they will collapse. So we have no need really to negotiate. However, we will negotiate if we get what we want in the context of that negotiation. So, in a context like that, how do you push them on anything? How do you try to compel or force Putin's hand in a war that he knows he's already won?
I, I
It's
don't
that.
think I don't think you can. I agree with you. He's won. It's over. I think that you don't force him to concede anything. You can't force him to concede anything. He doesn't have to give up anything. So I think what you do is you end things where they are now and say, okay, keep what you took, and we're going to move on from there. The map of Ukraine is going to be redrawn, whether the Ukrainians like it or not. It's just a reality of the situation on the ground.
Mhm.
But I don't think Putin has to concede anything. And I'll add too that in the last week, Trump ordered the Treasury Department to not enforce sanctions on Russian banks. The sanctions still exist, but they're not being enforced
Enforced.
for the past week. Also, last week, very quietly, Visa and MasterCard started doing business in Russia again. So they see the writing on the wall.
I didn't think Russia was on the SWIFT system. How could they be doing business with Russia?
They were on the SWIFT system. And now they are, well, they're technically able to take credit card charges if those sanctions are being ignored or frozen or whatever word you want to use. So this isn't going to amount to any real change, but symbolically, it's huge. Symbolically, it signals the end of the conflict as far as the United States is concerned. I'm on a listserv of a whole bunch of people who, Americans who used to work for RT.
Oh, Vince One, that list they put out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and people are very excited watching these developments. They don't mean anything concretely yet, but symbolically, I think this is the beginning of the end of the conflict.
Well, Swan is saying 2 weeks.
I think that's optimistic.
Yeah, I don't know where he's getting that from.
No,
I have no idea where he's getting that from.
I don't think that's right. It's going to take more than 2 weeks, but it's coming.
Interesting. John, man, you have no idea how much I appreciate these conversations.
Oh, always good to talk to you, tomorrow.
John Kiriakou, former CIA officer. And again, one more time, John, just so the people know where they can find you and where they can find your speeches that are taking place.
Oh, thank you. You can find everything I do on Substack. It's johnkiriakou.substack.com. And if you want to look at the schedule, it's dynamic. They're constantly adding dates. It's at tigersLanestudios.com.
John, man, you have a fantastic evening. Thank you for this once again.
Thank you, buddy. You too.
All right. Good.